Brooklyn. Like, woof.
Yeah.
What a game. What a game. What a game. This is the talented Mr. Taco here at the Daily Sporting. We have a special guest. We got Jim from Fan in the Van on today. He is a podcaster in his own right, content creator. He is a Nets fan, I should say, at the very least. And we're here to break down the game for you. It was a 115-107 win for Brooklyn. And how you feeling, bro? How do you feel about this game?
Um, I'm surprisingly, I'm shocked that they won after Harden after 43 seconds with the hamstring. I kind of thought it was just gonna. I thought it was gonna be a downward spiral, especially with Griffin playing the five, but 14 boards and. I think the move to Brooklyn for him was the smart move. He's kind of playing like the Blake Griffin of old. So,
speaking to that, Blake had a great game. He played 35 minutes. He went 7 of 13 from the floor. He went 4 of 9 from 3-point range in itself. And it looked like they were playing off him and they were daring him to shoot. And he took those shots and he made them. He was hustling. He had 14 rebounds in this game.
Oh, yeah.
And I definitely agree with you. It was a good move for him, especially coming off that buyout market with, the Nets already having 2 premier, scorers, 3 premier players with James Harden. He becomes a complementary player, with his size and his just ability to hustle. I mean, it's showing to be a great fit.
Yeah. The only thing that they're really missing is I don't know what's up with DeAndre Jordan.
Yeah.
And Jeff Green being out now for the 4th straight game or so, that's another blow to the team too. And if Harden's out for an extended period of time, I mean, they proved tonight they can win without him. And you figure throughout the whole season, they only played a total of like 9 games together. So now in the playoffs, they're finally gelling, and now Harden's out again. But they've done it without him before.
Yeah, and I think the one thing about that Harden injury was he went immediately to the hospital for an MRI, during the game. So it just makes me wonder, how severe is it? Is he going to be out a few games? I came into this series thinking that the Bucks were going to be able to slow down the big 3 enough in order to win this series, and I did expect a lot better production from the Bucks. But overall, like, if we take a quick look at the box score here from the Bucks side of things, they shot 20% from 3-point range, 6 of 30. And that's just not going to get it done. I mean, Forbes went 1 for 5, and Forbes has been a sniper all throughout the playoffs. Drew Holiday went 2 for 7. Giannis Antetokounmpo went 2 for 5 from 3. He went 0 for 3 from the free throw line. And to me, I feel like that was the biggest thing in that game, or the biggest turning point in that game, was in the beginning of or the middle to the end of the second quarter, when he missed the back-to-back free throws. And then it just started to spiral, and you just started seeing his body language go down. And from that point pretty much on, I don't think Brooklyn really gave up the lead. As we see here, it was close in the first quarter. In the second quarter, Brooklyn took a 1-point lead, it looks like. And then after that, it was just all Brooklyn. And to me, I think that's going to be the biggest thing in this series is, can Giannis hit enough free throws to keep up with the Nets? And my question is, did you think that the Nets could play such good defense? Like, they played really good defense in this game.
I was shocked because at one point they were ranked like dead last throughout the season in defense. And here's why they can get away with it is because when they were blowing teams out by 20, 25 points a game, you can play shitty defense. But, now it's different now. It's the playoffs, and I don't know what happened. All of a sudden, they all learn how to play defense, and this is what happens. And the Bucks, unfortunately, listen. When we did our podcast earlier, I said it's the Nets in 6. I'll give them a win in Brooklyn. I'll give them a win in Milwaukee. Other than that, it's not going 7.
No. I mean, I personally thought it was going to go 7 on the Bucks side, and if they play like this, I don't think that they stand a chance. The one thing that the Bucks do have going for them is the fact that they did shoot 20% from 3, and on the season they were about a 39% 3-point shooting team with 37% 3-point shooting team. So that does leave them a lot of room for improvement. But shooting 57% from the free throw line is just not going to get it done against a Nets team like this, where you have to be able to get your easy baskets in, because these guys can show difficult shots. Like, think about it. Kyrie went 11 for 26. He went 3 through 11 from 3-point range. He played 45 minutes. It looked like he was just not able to score efficiently, but when he needed a basket, he got a basket.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing about this Nets team that's scary. What do you make of Mike James though? I know that he was a late season acquisition for the Nets, but he seems to be making a name for himself.
I didn't even know who he was when he came on the court. All of a sudden, I'm like, who's this guy? And then all of a sudden, scoring, swishing, and dishing is like Walt Frazier would say.
Yeah. I think that he's been a
Next man
revelation
up.
for them. Yeah, and even Bruce Brown has been a solid player for them for most of the season. Where he may not be like the best scorer, but as that role player that you need him to be, he's a good defender. He's a good hustler, and I think the Nets are looking really really interesting right now because I didn't think that they would be able to score well enough for the Bucks to lose the series, to be honest. But if the Bucks are going to shoot 20%, do they have a shot? Not even close.
Not at all. And the Bucks also can't rely just on Adekopo to keep him in the game, or Middleton.
Yeah.
They're going to have to. Brook Lopez is a former shell of himself when he was in Brooklyn.
Mm-hmm.
And he's not going to be able to carry this team either. And Adekopo, I thought, was when he collided with Brown at that one point.
Mm-hmm.
I figured that would have been the blow to Milwaukee, and then I just would have said this would have been a sweep. But he stayed in the game, and I don't see Milwaukee is another piece away from being a championship contending team. When they offered him that Supermax, they didn't put much around him to get them over the hump in a way, to me. And their bench really doesn't scare me the way Brooklyn's would scare me.
See, like I think the biggest thing though with this team, and I think this is the best version that they could possibly put together because, I mean, they pretty much mortgaged all their assets in order to get Drew Holiday on this team to be that upgrade over Bledsoe. They made the deal for Tucker, but I don't really think they have many other like options on this team in order to really make it better. Other than maybe some random like Blake Griffin type signing where you get a guy off a buyout who wants to come there. So I think that this might be the last run for the Bucks. Like the Bucks, if they don't do something this year, I think they may run it back one more time. But this might be the end of the line, maybe with Giannis with the Bucks or with this Bucks team as it is, because they need to score better than this. Let's face it, Brooklyn is supposed to be a bad defensive team, and you're supposed to be one of the best offensive teams in this game. And I think one player that really had a lot to do with it was Kevin Durant.
This was one of Durant's best games all around, from the offensive side of it to defense. He was all over the place.
I agree with you wholeheartedly, because not only was Kevin Durant, like he went 12 of 25, so he was his normal efficient scoring. He was almost at 50% from the field, but the thing about him that was so amazing was his defense and even his court awareness, because in the third quarter he had caught his fourth foul. And Nash was going to like, hey, let me take you out of the game. And he weighs him up and he's like, no, I'm good. I'm going to stay and play. And to his credit, he didn't foul. He kept playing hard and he kept knocking down buckets, man. He was just a walking bucket. I think, what was it? It was it at the end of the half or was it in the third quarter where he came down the court and he was matched up with Giannis and he's just shaking and baking on Giannis and just pulls up from three and just banks it in right in his face. It was just like at that point in time, it's like, if Kevin Durant is Kevin Durant, you're not this Nets team. I don't think is stoppable. I don't think KD and Kyrie combined are beatable when Kevin Durant is Kevin Durant. Not like this. Not like this. Because like you said,
even if Harden's out for, let's say, the rest of the playoffs, Brooklyn's still an NBA Finals team without a shadow of a doubt. As long as Durant stays healthy, Kyrie stays healthy, and they're both combined putting up, let's say, 30 each a game. And Durant's rebounding the hell out of the ball. It's really, they could still win. They could still win the whole thing.
Yep, and if you get the games that you got out of Griffin and Harris, because they both gave you 20. Harris was efficient, 5 of 9 from three, 7 of 11 from the field, so he was scoring efficiently for you. And then you had Griffin, who was a monster on the boards, and he got you the points. Now, I think the biggest question that you have to ask if you're the Nets is, can Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving continue to play 40 plus minutes in this series and keep up, their efficiency and their scoring? Because maybe it's a case where, first two games, they're able to keep it up, but by game three, game four, kind of like what the Knicks saw with Derrick Rose, where it's like, Derrick Rose was great to start the series, but as the series went on and we saw that he was playing 40 minutes, it kind of wore on him and he didn't get the legs and the lift. Do you think that could be an issue where maybe the Bucks, don't look as good early, but if they're able to, get the series longer and drag it deeper, they might be able to pull something out here?
I think with Durant, it'll tire him out. With Kyrie, I don't think it will because he was so used to it having to carry LeBron in Cleveland.
I love it.
And then, and even when he was in Boston, he was playing 40 plus a game. So, I mean, for Kyrie, it's just another day in the office. For Durant, because he's had the Achilles issue, amongst other issues, you really can't chance it with him. Can he do it? Yeah. But if I'm Steve Nash, I don't. And you better hope that Jeff Green can play in the series to kind of spell him for at least 5 to 10 minutes at a clip. Because if not, and Durant goes down, the season's done.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you. Now, I think when we look at this game and we try to project going forward, what could the Bucks do different in order to combat what the Nets did to them? Do you think it's just a kind of case where Milwaukee is just kind of gonna have to, play the same game and hope their shots go down, or do you think that they should make some kind of changes versus this Nets team?
I don't think they're gonna make any changes, and I mean, I think game two is going to be closer than this game. But the issue is that what Milwaukee can't stop is once KD or Kyrie start going off and then draining threes from everywhere and driving the paint. Blake Griffin is Blake Griffin. And once it gets to a 10, 12-point lead, you're kind of playing catch up at that point.
And I think one of the things that you definitely noticed is, like especially when that third quarter run started happening, the Nets can just score so efficiently and so deadly that it starts to put pressure on the Bucks, where they're starting to press, and now they're starting to find their offense. And next thing you know, they start spiraling. It's almost like Shane Falco said, they were in quicksand. No matter how hard they were trying hard to fight out, they were just falling deeper and deeper into the trap, and it just became too much for them. And I think that's something that we're gonna have to really watch in this series, where when the Nets do go on these runs, does it break the will of the Bucks? Because I think that may be the way to beat them.
I think they kind of did that tonight.
Yeah, I definitely agree, because there's no way they could have lost.
And it's the same thing that happened even in the Boston series. Like the Nets would be down, and then all of a sudden they go on a 12-0 run, and then it's game over at that point.
That I think that's going to be the biggest question throughout this playoff is, can anyone withstand those Nets runs and then be able to start going on runs of their own? Because you have to, in order to beat the Nets, you're going to have to go on some runs. You're going to have to score points, and you're going to have to defend.
Well, the only thing that would probably maybe help Milwaukee is because obviously the Nets are thin at center. You can't have, obviously Griffin played 30 plus, puts up 14 rebounds, gets you 20, but is he doing that the whole series? Am I chancing it? No. And then you have Claxton coming off the bench, who's not bad either, but Brook Lopez can push him around. So if Milwaukee drives the paint more instead of chucking up threes from the moon, who knows?
And I think that's the crazy part too, is that they shot 10 less 3-pointers than the Nets. And they shot 2 more shots in the net. So they were trying to work it in the paint. But I think that, after the first half, it looked like that was going to be the game plan. And the Nets actually did a decent job of walling up in the paint. Kevin Durant, especially, he made life a little bit difficult out there for even Brook Lopez. And I think that's going to be something that's going to be really interesting to watch, is how the Nets defend the paint. And that's going to be, I think, a big storyline in game 2 is, can they defend the paint? And can the Bucks hit the three? Because they're a better 3-point shooting team than what they showed. But is the pressure that the Nets put on them too much for them to hit those threes? Because role players are role players,
Oh yeah.
they're not always gonna hit those shots. Now, when we look at game three, what's your projections? How much do you think the Nets are gonna win by in that one?
What, game two?
Game two, so excuse me.
It might be the same outcome, to be honest with you. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
going to say it's a blowout. I'd probably say exactly what you see tonight, just
Mm-hmm.
probably different scoring totals, but
Mm-hmm.
I'd say about 7 to 8.
Mm-hmm. And then, what would be your biggest worry as a Nets fan for the next game? Where do you think would be the biggest thing that you guys have to be like, we really got to watch out for this, or it could cost us?
Honestly, it's defending the paint is the one thing, and they even got to stop. I mean, even though they were hot from three, um, with me, Joe Harris gets a lot of flack because to me they overpaid for him for a role player type guy who for
Mm-hmm.
some reason starts tonight. I don't know why, but good thing he did.
Mm-hmm.
And when he gets cold, he'll still chuck threes up from everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that he can't do. And the main issue, the other issue is, they're going to have to somehow protect Durant with being injury prone. I mean, yeah, tonight's fine having him play 40 plus, but you're going to do that Monday night.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, if he plays 40 minutes and goes
Mm-hmm.
down, you got to question Steve Nash at that point. Why didn't you put somebody else in and give him like a 5-10 minute break?
Mm-hmm.
And you got to kind of do the same thing with Kyrie, even though he's used to playing a whole game.
Mm-hmm.
But they got to get Jeff Green back. They got to have DeAndre Jordan in the lineup. Again, I don't know what's wrong with him. I think he's hurt for the rest of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows? But but if they can't defend the paint, Giannis is going to have fun in it all day.
Mm-hmm. 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 And every time that he likes to take those step back 3-pointers, which he started doing in the third quarter when they started pressing, that's a win for the Nets before he even shoots it. It's like, I don't care if you make or miss that. I want you shooting those deep threes and those long twos, because let's face it, that's not your game. And so many times it looked like he tried to be Kevin Durant when he'd be on the baseline and he'd be in that post up situation. He'd fade away with the midi. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, that's Kevin Durant's shot, not your shot. Take it to the rim, bro.
Exactly.
Like, what are you doing? But I do think, hopefully, we get a better showing from the Bucks here. I want this series to go far because, to me personally, I think this is the hardest matchup for the Nets that they'll face throughout the whole playoffs. I don't really see a team that matches up better with them. Maybe the Suns, but that's about it.
Let's say if Philly can't get past Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
And Embiid's out, then the Nets have an easier path playing Trae Young and the Hawks as they do playing the Sixers, because the Sixers have what the Nets don't, and that's a true 5. And then they also have Tobias Harris, and Ben Simmons is, Sixers fans are probably still pissy that they didn't trade him for James Harden, and boo-hoo on that one.
I mean, you do make a valid point, and I did think that the Sixers and the Bucks present a great matchup for the Nets in the fact that they're supposed to be defensive oriented teams that should be able to slow them down. I thought that Giannis would be able to do more of that, dominating in the paint, and with his versatility, it'd be more harder for them to stop. But I think you do bring up a good point about Embiid, where if Embiid is somewhat healthy, being that true 5, and like we saw with the Nets here, even with Brook Lopez, and they still are going to go small. I mean, Embiid can go for 50, and he can shoot like 60% doing so, which will be hard for the Nets to deal with because, like you said, it does make a good matchup for them. So,
and not only that, Philly has a decent bench too.
Yeah, and you know what? They have a lot of 3-and-D type guys where it's like, they may not be the best players, but you know what? They can play some defense and they can knock down a 3, and that's all you really need to do in the playoffs when you're in this type of level. And then it comes down to how good is Ben Simmons? Can Ben Simmons drive and kick and make the right plays? And then that's what that series is about. But I definitely think that Ben Simmons is going to lock down Trae Young. He's going to have him on an island, and that's going to be the end of the Bucks.
I can't stand him.
Oh yeah, no. If Ben Simmons doesn't deliver tomorrow night, oh my God, is he gonna get shit from me? I need him to shut Trae Young down. Like I am sick of that man. He needs to be done and dealt with.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah,
and he's almost as bad as LeBron with the whining and crying for every single foul.
yeah,
I can't,
yeah,
and people want to anoint this guy the goat,
yeah,
and you see it in Game 6. He's up and down the court whining and crying for 10
yeah.
minutes. It's like, and then people are saying that he would have lasted in Jordan's era of the NBA. No, no, no.
Like to me, it's like LeBron is probably the best statistical player that'll ever play this game, but the game is not just based on stats. And I think that's the one thing that everyone looks or forgets when they debate Jordan versus LeBron. It's like, yeah, LeBron is going to put up some of the best numbers that we've ever seen. But you know what? How many times has he shown up smaller? How many times is it that he's looking for the bailout? Or how many times does he need to ask Dwayne Wade or Kyrie Irving or someone else or Anthony Davis come here and bail me out because I can't do this? It is a team game, and Jordan did use his teammates, but I just think there's a different era of confidence and a different era of the way he handled his business that just makes him so much more elite than LeBron. Even though statistically speaking, LeBron's better than him, you know. But stats aren't everything, right?
Nope. And the
Uh,
and like the other issue that comes into play with it
mhm,
is how people want to debate who's better, Jordan or LeBron,
mhm.
but people leave out Kobe. And Kobe is 100 times better than LeBron. And Kobe is on that elite level with Michael Jordan, not
I mean,
LeBron.
I agree somewhat and disagree somewhat. I think that Kobe also, he was with Shaq to start off with. In his later years, he was a monster, and let's not get it twisted. Kobe's one of the best scorers ever, and he has that Jordan mentality. But I do put LeBron over him in the fact that LeBron is carrying teams for a long time with no talent to the finals. Like some of those teams that he took with the Cavs and even with the run that he had with the Lakers, where they basically just had him and AD. This guy's really putting that team on his back and doing it. So I can't quite say that. Although I mean, let's face it, Kobe is an all-time great, and he is one of the best. Like, if you're asking about closing a game, hell yeah, I'd take Kobe over LeBron. But for a whole game, I probably have LeBron over Kobe. But I will say this: I mean, to me, the best scorer in NBA history is Kevin Durant. There is nobody. If you need a bucket, there is not one player in the NBA that you could say is better at getting you a bucket than Kevin Durant. Like even Kobe, even Jordan. Like this dude is shooting 50 something percent from the field, pulling up from three over 7 footers, just like easy. So like they say, there's levels to it, but
Right.
I think that the once Durant wins this one and maybe another one, now instead of the whole Jordan and LeBron debate, it's going to come back to the KD and LeBron debate. Was KD better in the era than Jordan? I mean, than James, because he could end up with more rings than LeBron. He
Yeah.
really could. This Nets team is built for at least 3 years.
Well, they got to get it this year and the
Yes.
following year because all
Yeah.
their contracts are pretty much up after the third year.
Yeah. But I mean, the Nets have a ownership group that got money apparently, right? And they'll be like, hey,
Well, yeah, especially when I think Jay-Z's still a minority owner within it. So,
yeah, they'll just resign all those guys, go above the cap, and
yep.
I figured you have 3 to 5 years with that team,
Yeah,
and then
and they did it right this time as opposed to when they went and got Pierce and Garnett and
yeah,
Rondo. They were all past their prime.
yep, yep,
And I mean, even though they could all still play the game, they weren't the same that they were with their respective teams at the time, with all of them being in Boston at the time.
yeah.
When
What
they
what the
came to Brooklyn, it was just them, and there was really no other supporting cast. This
mhm,
time, you have the big three and
mhm,
the supporting cast around them.
mhm. Yep, and I think that it's just one of those things where timing and roster construction is everything. Because it was just like kind of like with the Lakers when they got Karl Malone and Gary Payton and all those guys. It was like you had all those guys, but it was just too far past their primes for them to make a difference.
Yeah,
Same thing with Garnett and Pierce when they were with the Nets. But I think that it was great that the Nets beat the Celtics on this new run to the championship. It's like, hey,
yeah,
we gave you all our picks in order to get those guys. You screwed us. You built your little team up, but we're still probably going to win a chip before you.
yeah. I think what hurt Boston, honestly, is them not having Kemba.
Mm-hmm.
Because Kemba is one of the key pieces, and Jalen Brown being out for the rest of the
Yeah,
season was
yeah,
another big blow. And you're asking Jason Tatum to carry the whole team
yeah,
with Marcus Smart?
yeah. That team's
Not
going
gonna
to need
happen.
some new construction, and with everything that's going on in the front office, that's going to be a whole nother interesting team to watch during this offseason because now you're gonna have a whole new philosophy in the front office. And that was the guy that was coaching, so he should understand where they're weak and how to fix it. We're hoping, but he's a first time GM, so how does that work? So it's so many interesting storylines in the NBA that we're gonna have even once this season is done. So like they say, the NBA is the gift that keeps on giving for us content creators.
Oh, yeah. Well, the thing with that whole thing with Boston is you put a guy who's never been a GM in the GM position. And I don't know if you saw Stephen A. Smith's rant or not. All right, so he pretty much went off saying, how do you just put this guy in there? And why don't they look into getting a minority operations of basketball president for the Celtics? And he's right, especially you put a coach as a GM and the basketball operations president, and what did he do in the playoffs? You got one victory, you lost in the first round, and instead of like in Portland where they fire the coach, this guy gets a promotion, and he's never been in the position before. And there's other guys throughout the league who are looking for a job who have more experience than he does. Why not bring in, say, Chauncey Billups? Give that guy a shot. Give Sam Cassell a shot. And whoever they put in as the head coach is a lame duck coach because Mike Krzyzewski, after this college season coming up, is retiring from Duke, and Boston's going to offer him a boatload of money to come to Boston. And I wouldn't be surprised if he takes it.
Man, don't you think though that Coach K's at the point now where he's like 75?
I think he wants to see if he could excel in the NBA level.
Maybe
because he's dominated college like Dean Smith.
But then why not go to LA with LeBron? Because we already know who else is gonna get fired.
Because
your boy Vogel's gone too, and he's gonna show up. He's like, you got Anthony Davis and LeBron.
Well, he may get traded with Kuzma.
What happened?
He may get traded with Kuzma because with the way LeBron is, he can get everybody traded, even the coach.
Man, so, ain't nobody taking that dude. He gonna get straight cut.
I don't even know how Vogel even got another head coaching job.
Man, listen, they wanted Jason Kidd. They only gave it to him just because Jason Kidd had the DWI and all that other shit. So kind of messed with him.
Jason Kidd looks like Dame Lillard wants him to be the coach of the Trailblazers. That's another team that's a piece away from contending and getting out of the first round.
Man, I tell you, are they with what went down for them? I just don't know, man. Because looking at that game, they should have beat the Nuggets. The Nuggets were down some key pieces, and they basically just laid down and died to that team. They need to make some serious changes on that team. I don't think as great as CJ and Dame are, I think you need to maybe flip CJ for a complimentary piece or move Dame for a haul in order to fill that roster out, because it's just not enough and it's not working. And how many times can you do the same thing before you say, okay, we need to make a change?
Well, that's pretty much what he tweeted out early. Well, not tweet. I think it was on Instagram. He did it. He used like a lyric from Nipsey Hussle.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of, how people like to write their little reports. And there was a trade proposal that somebody made up that it involves New York Knicks.
Yeah.
You'd have to package RJ Barrett and draft picks. But I wouldn't trade RJ Barrett.
Yeah.
I mean, the Knicks don't use Mitch Robinson at all. Put him in a deal, take Kevin Knox, because they barely use him, and take Frank Ntilikina as the three pieces you move. 2 first-round draft picks, a second pick, and you get Dame Lillard. You're going to have to take the contract that he's got. And then you have...
Man, listen, if they wanted that, I'll give them all that, and I'll throw an extra first-round pick in there. I don't think that they take something like that, but absolutely would I offer that in a heartbeat, bro. Yeah. Like, honestly, I would offer IQ, I would offer Mitch, I would offer Knox, and I would send them 3 picks, and I would say, let's do this. Like, to me, that's the dream trade, but I just don't know if the Knicks would be able to pull that off, or if the Blazers would be inclined for that type of offer. The Knicks do have to make a move. I'm just not sure if they're going to make a trade for a superstar, because I think the guy from Knicks Fan TV was saying it great. We can't gut this whole roster in order to get a star when, we don't have anything anyway. It's like, can you deal everything you already have to get one player? Then, you have nothing left to get anything else. So I think it's going to come down to us being savvy in free agency, signing a couple of guys, like that can be Reggie Bullock, but better. You know what I mean? Reggie Bullock was a great signing for us. We signed him for the minimum. He was one of our best players, one of our best 3-point shooters. So we need to find that on a bigger scale. You know, another Julius Randle type.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But and also too, like the Knicks will have money in cap space
Yes.
that they can go out and get. I wouldn't say go out and sign Chris Paul because
Mm.
obviously he's playing in this series banged up, and at this point he's another guy. I wouldn't say he's past his prime, but he's hitting it. And
True.
you've
But it
seen in
depends
the
on
past where the Knicks have gotten guys past their prime, and what's happened. The same
I
old,
think
the same old, same old.
I think it also depends on the contract though. Like if you're telling me that I can get Chris Paul without giving up any assets and it's only going to be like 4 years, 25 million a year, I can do that. Now, if you're telling me Chris Paul, because he's going to be declining a $44 million option, is coming out here thinking he's getting $35 million for like 3 years, hell no. Goodbye. Keep walking, Chris
Yeah.
Paul. So I think it really just depends on how much money he's looking for on the open market and how long of a contract he wants. Because if he doesn't cost any assets to get, I mean, fuck, it's better than Peyton. Like, like we're immediately a better team. And if it doesn't cost us anything, then yeah, I do that. But the question is, how much does he really want? But I would love Chris Paul here. But I mean, if you're in a team that's competing for a championship, how are you going to come to the Knicks?
Yeah. I
Like,
mean, and even if Carmelo's out there too, I mean, he knows his role now as opposed to his first go around with the Knicks.
yeah,
Jay, you can't disagree. If you were to bring Melo in coming off the bench, playing 15, 20 minutes a game,
Mhm.
putting up 10 to 12, 3, 4 assists, and maybe 4 or 5 rebounds,
Mhm.
listen, that's going to help Randall out a lot. It's
Yep.
going to help RJ Barrett out because for everything the Knicks were last year, they were they were projected to be the same, if not worse. They were
Mhm.
projecting Barrett to be just as bad in his
Mhm.
rookie year to his
Mhm.
sophomore year.
Mhm.
Randall was going to be just as crappy as he was last
Mhm.
year.
Mhm.
Randall obviously didn't show up in the playoffs, but
Mhm.
throughout the whole season, most improved.
Mhm.
The Knicks in my opinion, the Knicks overachieved. And if you're a Knicks fan who you look at the first round loss,
Mhm.
but you take it with a grain of salt and realize this is a step in the right direction. You guys
Mhm.
don't have an Isaiah Thomas there ruining the team,
Mhm.
trading everybody and their mother
Mhm.
40,000 years worth of draft picks.
Mhm.
Then, and all you are is a piece or two away from
Mhm.
contending. And you have money. You have
Mhm.
money in salary cap, and you made New York a free agent attraction again. That's why
And we have
Durant
picks.
didn't want to come to the Knicks because he would have been anointed the savior. Same reason why Kyrie didn't come. If the Knicks had done this a year or two ago,
Mhm.
Kyrie and KD and Harden all might be in New York and
Yep.
not in Brooklyn.
Yep.
And it's a different story.
And I think the biggest difference, like you said, it's not like the Isaiah years where we're in debt with the salary cap, where we don't have any space to make any free agencies, and we gave up all our picks, so we have nothing to go out and get anything with. We actually have 2 first round picks this year, so
Yeah.
it'll be really interesting. And I can't wait to see what the Knicks do. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of talk about the Knicks all off season long because let's face it, for the Knicks, that's all we have is the off season for them for at least the last couple of years. It's always been like, are we finally going to get someone? Is this the time? So it'll be nice. But I think for that we're pretty good. I mean we got the Nets versus Bucks coverage here going. You got the Nets winning again in the next game by virtually the same score, where maybe the box score is going to be similar but not quite the same, where a couple of other guys may have to step up, where you're going to get a regression from maybe like a Blake Griffin type. Maybe you're gonna have to take some minutes back from a KD and from a Kyrie in order to help save them, but it should be pretty much more of the same in your estimation. And in my opinion, the Bucks, they have to hit their threes, because if they don't hit the threes, they're not going to do anything. They were a good 3-point shooting team throughout the season. You need to open up the space for Giannis, but by the second half, they were locking in, and they knew that if they weren't hitting the shot, so they collapsed the paint, and it was just too hard for them. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see game 2. I look forward to talking to you more about this series because this is definitely going to be a great series. And before we let you go, I'm going to give you an opportunity here to shout out your podcast and what you're doing, so we can give everyone or have everyone give a listen to your stuff. Okay.
Yeah.
Right,
Everybody check out Fan in the Van podcast. Um, all audio's on Anchor, Spotify, Apple. Videos are up on YouTube. So definitely check it out. Follow, subscribe. We answer all questions. We'll debate anything with you. So give it a listen. Thanks for having me on.
No problem, brother. And until next time, I am the talented Mr. Taco. He is the fan in the van. We are out, and peace out, everybody.
Hey, David and Taco, they bring that heat. All about UFC, way more than a fantasy. Let's see who going toe to toe. Throw down on the mat. Check the replay, run it back. We gotta check the stats. Hey, do this every day. We ain't come to play. This is sports talk, and we love talking MMA. Everything fantasy sports. Dopest show that I know. With Electric Dave and talented Mr.